This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
My phone says 6.
Yes, it's 6.
That clock doesn't.
No idea what that clock.
All right.
It's on the dot.
All right, perfect, thank you. I assume I still need to read the,
Yes.
all right.
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great.
All right, this meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted in person and simultaneously via remote participation online to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found below. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. We are unable to do so despite best efforts. We will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the online meeting ends abruptly, both the in-person and online meetings will not be restarted, and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. Right. It is 6 o'clock. I will now call to order the April 25th, 2022 meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. Are there any public concerns, non-agenda items?
None that I've received, and my understanding is everyone's here is for an agenda item, correct? You're on a separate concern. Okay.
And if you're present in person and have not done so, if we could make sure the sign-in gets completed, that would be great.
There's a sign-in sheet on the table here. Just come up and fill it out whenever you get a chance.
Okay.
Please, certainly.
All right. Next item, public hearing meetings. Public hearing continued from April 11th, 2022. Notice of intent filed by Lathrop Community Inc. at 100 Bassett Brook Drive, map 104, lot 2, for improvements to the existing trail network. Mass DEP file number 1510315, request filed June 14th, 2021.
Yeah, so I actually received a letter from Holly Smith-Gilray, the Chief Financial Officer for Lathrop Community at 100 Bassett Brook Drive. And the letter is as follows. I'm writing to formally withdraw the NOI, file number 1510315. Lathrop submitted on May 24th, 2021. If you need additional information, please let me know. Thank you for your help and happy spring. So there you go, withdraw.
All right. Motion
To withdraw.
There's a second.
Second.
Roll call vote. Lisa?
Aye.
Fletcher?
Aye.
August?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore, absent. Motion carries. Next item, public hearing continued from April 11th, 2022. Notice of intent filed by Berkshire Design Group on behalf of Investment Real Estate LLC at Main Street Rear, 9 Coleman Road, Southampton, map 164, lot 8, for additional self-storage buildings with new stormwater management system. Mass DEP file number 1510319, request filed March 18th, 2022. Is there anyone here for this item?
Yep.
Thank you.
Jeff Squire from Berkshire Design Group. We were here before you at the last hearing, and there were a couple of outstanding questions, clarifications, requests that came out of that meeting. And I've got plans with me here tonight I can show you, but Cassie's also got them. And then, so a couple things. The few things that we understood were delineation of the wetland border, the Easthampton portion with boulders, some delineation in the field. So those have been added to the plan. There was a request to confirm some of the drainage areas going to the existing drainage system. I think that was something that you had mentioned. So this is sort of a synopsis of that. And Cassie also has a copy of that. But this, so there, what it is there's the one drainage area that I've highlighted, that E1B is an existing, the P1D is the proposed that goes to that outlet. The long and short of it is there's a reduction in the flow for the 2-year storm, the 10 and 100-year or slightly over 0.3, 0.4 CFS. The overall area goes down. The primary reason for that is because most of what is there now is grass in that drainage area that goes to that outlet. Most of that is being converted to roof. So the flows are a little bit higher, and then but we did, look at the other question that came out of that. Is there, any potential for erosion or scouring at that outlet location? So there are pictures, they're not the greatest, but just does give you an idea of what that, location looks like. It's pretty heavily vegetated. There is a riprap pad, a stone pad at the outlet, but there are no signs of erosion. There are multiple outlets at that one location, and certainly didn't see any signs of any issues currently in this. And small increase, again, is really just due to the change in what is now vegetated to root cover. And then the other thing was, the other thing we understood is looking at some opportunity to clean that existing, drainage area to the extent we can. And so, what is being proposed is some inlet filters in those particular catch basins. Those are in addition to, the other stormwater features. And so those have been added to the plan as well.
I will defer to commissioners who were present at the previous meeting.
Well, we had some concerns because the stormwater goes across 2 different towns, so we didn't quite know how to handle that.
I would add that just for that Southampton did require a stormwater permit as well, and they're, from what I understood, will be approving that at their next meeting. Planning board, I don't. No, they were trying to find.
But they don't require a bond.
They don't require a bond.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that was something that we had mentioned at the last meeting. Is I was going to try to go to the planning board review of it and see what information I could get. Because there was a concern about like overlap of the 2 review processes, or having potentially conflicting finding or anything like that. That was something that was noted that I wanted to try to avoid. So I'm happy to try to go once we know when it's going to be. I'm trying to keep tabs on that.
Mm-hmm.
Did we determine, Cassie, whether we can have a bond that covers all elements of the proposed stormwater system?
I asked Dan Murphy, city engineer, started looking at what the bond would even be. But I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't ask him that question. Sorry.
Okay.
I didn't remember to do that, but I can ask him now. And I think that was something that at the last meeting we were thinking, like, if Southampton does require a bond, ours would be less whatever their bond is for their portion.
Because we didn't want to double dip on things.
Yep. Huh. Okay.
Does this information address the design information that may have been in question?
Yeah. So let's see. So what were we talking about the last meeting? We were talking about the different drainage areas and how overall the peak flow going to that one resource area is a reduction, mostly reduction, and that, so that, but that it's split between those 2 outfalls. And so with the existing outfall, we were concerned about potential for erosion at that outfall. And it sounds like you think there is not the potential for erosion at that outfall with the increases in discharge that would happen at that location. And then the other question was, so one of the other questions was treatment, since there'd be an increase in impervious cover that would drain to those existing catch basins and to that existing outfall. And we wanted some level of treatment for those. I guess the question is, so I haven't seen these, I haven't seen this kind of inlet filter before. Have you seen something like this, Julie?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
They seem like they would need a lot of maintenance. They don't seem very big.
Yeah.
Have you seen these BMPs installed at other
We have some of those
Facilities?
instances, yeah, and I just, and so, yeah, I mean, they require maintenance just like any, any separator or any other unit. The one sort of advantage with these is that, you notice the clogging or the fact that they're not working frequently because it won't drain, and so that's, if there is an issue, then it's a pretty identifiable issue and easy to fix compared to getting a back truck and all that schedule. The other thing I would just point out is that so one of the things that table shows is there's increase in overall area that's going to those drainage structures. Most of that area, and I didn't look those numbers up specifically, is for roof. The amount of paved area actually goes down. But most of what's in that additional area, I think, is roof. So there is some trade-off with what's draining there now and the proposed condition. But it is spread out, amongst those 3 catch basins and what.
Is this measure included in the O&M plan for the project?
I don't think it's been added to the O&M.
I guess my concern with these is that they'd be really easy and, like we've seen construction projects before where you have a filter, the kind that you'd have just for construction stormwater runoff, and they get clogged and then somebody just goes out, pokes a hole in the bottom and hey, it's working. It'll be seem pretty easy to like circumvent somehow.
And I apologize for asking a question that may have been answered at the previous meeting, but at what point, at what storm event do these basins overtop?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, the system as a whole is it spreads the drainage out in quite a few different directions. So we've got, a lot of it being addressed through the new basins, both in outbound and then there's a portion of the site now that drains those existing outlets that we are, reducing that drainage area, but keeping those existing outlets. So at what point do that entire system reach capacity? It would be a function of the pipe diameter, I would say. Or anything. Because those all now directly outlets at an existing location. That
Are the catch basins being replaced, or will it be the existing?
two of them are new. One of them is an existing one that we're reusing, the inverts. The one in the center.
Could you just?
I think the thought process was the only alternative was some sort of hydrodynamic separator inserted in line somewhere there, but given the scope of what's going there and what we're hoping to accomplish with the project, especially the majority of the drainage in the other basin is trying to avoid that additional cost, because it is a significant cost, especially with the self-storage. They're not expensive building to construct, so $15,000 separators.
Are they deep sump catch basins hooded?
Yes.
It's a pretty small increase in area. So that would be enough. I mean, you could try these things. I mean, if they're deep sump hooded catch basins, that's probably some level of improvement.
What is the existing catch basin? Is it just no sump? It is also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know as though it's got a hood, but we could certainly install one.
Where would the boulders be installed without being in the wetland?
So they are sort of following this fence. We've got them, here's the existing outlet, so they run the length of over the side. And it's really up and over the berm at the toe of the slope. It's a pretty obvious location, but.
Is that on this plan that I'm displaying right now, or? Is it-
No, that's in the updated plan sheet that I sent.
This one right here?
Did the commission discuss the construction of that existing outfall? Was that prior to the?
It was 2004, I think, or ish. I don't exactly remember. What was the age of the existing,
To start?
yeah, big existing structure out there?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know why I thought it was 2004, 2003, but I could just make that up.
I might be able to find that out actually, because I have the file of the previous permitting.
That was also a different set of stormwater standards
Mhm.
at the time.
2003 was when the permitting was done, at least. I don't know when it was constructed.
What's that?
Can we ask our former city engineer? So,
Yeah, and then other questions we had, I think in the permitting, like the notice of intent drawings that showed canopies over the driving aisles.
Yes.
And I guess maybe we should just have a condition that makes sure that those different canopy areas drain to the new stormwater basin and not to the existing outfall.
Yep.
And yeah, I guess the stormwater bond should cover even those bits in Southampton if Southampton doesn't have a bond requirement or whatever, just to make sure it gets constructed, because we still need it to cover our permit, even though it's in a different town.
Okay, that makes sense.
and any other questions or comments from the commission?
We talked about snow removal and things like that, so there were places for that.
Do we have a copy of the minutes? Did we revisit all of the questions from last time?
I wasn't able to finish the minutes from the last meeting. I do have my notes. That summary that Jeff gave covered everything that I had on there. The big outstanding thing was just if you wanted to wait until I went to that planning board meeting that does the stormwater review.
And when is the planning?
It hasn't been scheduled yet, but
In front, yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to like keep up with it. Last time I checked, it wasn't scheduled, so. Could potentially, I guess that if you guys think it's worthy to continue this until I have a chance to go and see that. See if that's,
I think we could condition this so that we can just be done with it, you know? Assuming that things don't change, but if things change, it's back,
Right.
you know?
That's, yeah, fair. That's, I guess, you could also say continuing it. We don't, if this commission doesn't require any additional information based on the design we have in front of us, then that risk is whatever risk the applicant is comfortable with. Because if there's a design change, then that would have to come back before Easthampton, and that would be reopening the whole hearing process. So if that's a risk, that's not our risk to bear.
Yes.
I'm not aware of any issues that they, I think we've addressed everything that they had questioned. They even questioned whether they have jurisdiction over it because it doesn't, meet the technical, definition of needing a stormwater permit in Southampton. But, we submitted one anyway, so.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the public?
I haven't received any.
No? Are there any comments from Remote participants?
Yeah, if anyone has anything, they can unmute themselves, but I believe most of these people are here for agenda items.
Hearing none, seeing none. Would anyone care to,
Are there any special conditions that we need to apply or just standard conditions?
Cassie, do you have recommendations for special conditions or our standard special conditions?
Yeah, just to go over them
Okay.
again, that there's, the reporting requirements, it seems like
Yep.
that's typical, and just wanted to be known for the applicant that that's something that is typically required under the stormwater permit and the water conditions, so weekly reporting, and then after every 0.25 inch rain event. And then it sounds like you guys are proposing permanent markers anyways during your application right now, so that's something that is usually people have questions about it when they finally come up to construct. But if you guys like these locations, we can leave it at that. The way it's
It looks
worded.
like if they go anywhere else, they're going in the wetland. So I think this is the best installation.
Okay, cool. And then just checking real quick on my notes from last meeting. We're still waiting on the bond amount from the city engineer, but once I get it, I can just plug that right in. I don't know if that would be a reason to wait to issue the permit.
But I would suggest that a pre-construction requirement be the final stormwater O&M plan, just to make sure that it includes the measures. And that's a pre-construction requirement.
Yeah, and I guess updated drawings with building details, including where the drainage goes.
Yeah, that was something at the last meeting. There was like a difference in the two drawings. One was showing that there was those roofs over the southernmost structures, and I don't know if that is something that's already been corrected with these updated plans you just sent.
No, well, I mean, some of the stormwater requirement, the history with this, a lot of the stormwater design was prepared 3 years ago when they were looking at originally permitting this. And during that, and at that time, they were looking at three individual buildings in a row. And between that time, they decided to provide a covered aisle space as a different type of product. So it's the same, all the drainage is the same, the drainage area is the same. The only difference is there's a trade between pavement and roof area, but all of those areas are all exactly the same. So we can update the stormwater, the graphics and the stormwater report. It doesn't change any of the calculations.
Okay. The other thing that I have noted from last meeting was there was requested curbing in the corner between the two new building sets. Is that is familiar to you? Was that included in these updated plans?
I don't know if it was.
Okay, I just make a note as pre-construction requirement.
We want to just make sure, like, stormwater was coming this way, that it wouldn't
Mhm.
sneak between these two buildings. And,
Right.
or I guess
And
that was the primary area.
yeah, that was it on my end. Yeah, those are the things I carried over from last meeting.
Still working. Looks like it anyway.
Good.
Are there any other special conditions the members of the commission would like to discuss? You satisfied with the stormwater basin seed mixes? Appropriate?
Yeah.
Okay. Are no other comments? Anyone care to make a motion to close the hearing and issue an order of conditions and stormwater permit?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and issue an order of conditions and stormwater permit with the special conditions discussed.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Lisa?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
August?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore is absent, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we take that.
Sure. Kathy, do you need?
Either way is fine. I have the digital copy, so
Okay.
if you leave it, I'll take
There,
it.
okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. As much noise as possible. Thank you very much. You're welcome. All right, next item on the agenda, public meeting, request for determination of applicability filed by the Hilltown Cooperative Charter Public School at 1 Industrial Parkway, map 114, lot 30 and 29.2 for walking boards along the existing footpath through wetlands as well as invasive species management. Request filed April 11th, 2022. There's someone, good evening.
Yeah, I'm Nan.
Hi,
I'm a teacher in the school.
thank you.
So
Okay.
I'll give a little explanation. The commission, if you remember, we did like a preliminary review of this because we weren't sure what was needed going forward, what was the best path for them. There are existing trails going through this kind of wetland area in the back. It's just footpaths. They didn't do any fill or anything like that to create them. And they want to install boards. There are currently some boards that are just on the ground for helping kids walk over the wetter areas. You guys want to install some more and then potentially do some vegetation management?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah,
let's take it from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we want to, over the past 5 years, it's actually gotten wetter back there because of development uphill from us. And so we would like to put in some very sort of simple board planks, like resting on logs, like 8-foot planks on logs in the wet areas so the kids don't have a place to.
Oh, you want wherever's going to be fine.
And then as well as that, we'd like to do some invasive species removal close to the trails.
What are the species you're targeting?
Every single one, except barberry. No, there's honeysuckle,
Multiflora rose?
well, we're not doing the throw. Phragmites is the big one.
Okay.
And I think what we'll do there is just sort of just cut it back. We're not proposing to do any digging. We're just going to cut back the honeysuckle and the multiflora rose. Here it is. It's all up here. Butterthorn, autumn, olive, bittersweet. Yeah. So, and that's basically what the planks would look like, resting on like a 5-inch diameter log.
I'm going to cut them back. Are you going to do any spot treatment with herbicide so you're going to do this on an annual basis?
Yes.
Cut back
And
up?
I think, well, the one, I didn't know if you had any recommendations for Phragmites, that's a tricky one. But I think with the other species, that everybody rolls their eyes. With the other species, I think just cutting them back continually, they'll eventually die back.
And you'll remove that cut material?
Yes,
From the site.
especially if there's seeds or anything.
Sure.
And then the hope is in that area where it's like shrub swamp with some red maple trees that maybe the trees themselves will shade out the Phragmites. I don't know.
Maybe. And then you're proposing to install some native species? Where is that occurring?
Yeah, well, that is just like that's not necessarily in the wetlands area, but.
Is it within 100 feet?
Yeah, I guess it
Okay.
would be.
What are you looking to?
So,
Install and
there are
enhance.
these native species like, maybe some of the pin oaks, ones that are adapted to sort of wetter soils, maybe some perennials like cardinal flower and things like that.
Does the person have any questions?
Suggestions?
Cassie, do you have any comments?
I can send you, there's a resource from Native Plant Trust for native plant species that you can kind of tailor it to the additional office. I have sent you that link. And it even lets you choose like the flower colors and all that stuff if you want to actually. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
It's great.
Well,
Thank you.
then you can use that. And yeah, I think, the commission looking at this, their preliminary review is kind of thinking, it's not very impactful since it's like walking paths was the idea. I have images from the site visit if you want to see.
Yeah, can you share some photos so we can all see?
Yes.
Can we, give like an aerial overview or
Yeah,
something,
we
just
got
so,
first.
like, can orient my brain to where we are?
So this is the school over here to the right. You can see my cursor at all, fluttering around there. And then this is the path here. There's some of the existing boards going through, down and around. It comes out here. I think it's in total about 375 feet, about, give or take. And so, yeah, that's gonna just gives you an overview. And then you're thinking you were wanting to put boards in here to the left.
Yes, yeah.
Out here.
Right above it, Cumberland Farms was put in about 5 years ago. And really, there's been an increased runoff since that construction has happened. And so when originally it was pretty dry back there, but now not so much anymore.
Sidebar note, Cassie, could you follow up with the Cumberland Farms on their annual stormwater management? Thank you. And before I open it up to the public for any? Oh, Cassie, were you pulling up your photo? Sorry.
Took me longer to take that note than I thought. Okay, so this is the rear of the school, and the entrance to the trail area is kind of up ahead.
When did you take these?
These are from April
Okay.
13th. Yeah,
Okay.
April 13th. So, yeah, no more snow, which is nice.
Looking at how wet it looks, but April's been a very wet month, so.
Okay, so this is kind of the beginning of it, that tree line. This is the existing drainage structure that's on site. Everything is kind of coming to this location and then going under the building and going underneath the outlets. Kind of far away, I think.
Yeah,
So
it
it goes
goes
outside of the lot.
goes underneath the building, doesn't have basement, and then it goes into a storm drain on Industrial Drive, which feeds into O'Neill.
Detail. How the proximity to the school of the drain.
This was our outside classroom during COVID. That's the boards, the reason why the boards are there.
Okay, so this is kind of the beginning of the trail. Carries along. There's a little crossing here. Goes over. It's not. It's just kind of resting on the ground there. Turn. Now we've got the boards that have just been laid. And kind of carries on through. And then this is the area where we wanted to put more, you're saying?
Yeah, we would take out those steps
Oh, yeah.
and put some,
So you remove those logs?
yes,
And
yeah,
then,
and have less touching the surface of the ground. This is the area.
Just showing how wet it is.
Yeah.
And there's the outlet. There, so. Looking into where the end of the trail is. Again. And then this is looking back at the school, to that open area. I think that's it.
any comments from the commission, questions based on the site photos? Any comments from the public, in person or remote?
I haven't received any outside comments like by email before the meeting.
Okay.
And if anyone here wants to mute themselves, they can do so now, or unmute themselves.
Seeing none. So we have a request for determination of applicability before us. So anyone care to?
Do we have a form so we can
Oh,
see,
I don't have
yeah,
the form.
kind of know where?
Yeah, I don't, but I can bring up just a blank one.
This one?
The one that you're gonna get. Oh, okay, yeah, in response to that.
So our response.
Which would seem to be one of the the work is within a resource area, it would not
Number-
alter.
Newfield
Any
Dredger also.
conditions?
Yeah.
Any conditions for this?
See if there's an opportunity.
I think that there are.
I would too,
Just
but
wanted to comment.
Don't trust my memory on such matters.
Okay, so,
so the options are positive or negative.
Okay, so negative type conditions if you want. The work described, within the resource area, the buffer zone is defined in the regulations, but will not alter the area subject to protection of the act, therefore,
Well, that's what, that one's limited to buffer zone.
it's buffer zone, so,
So,
I mean, including the buffer.
Get
zone.
larger, Kathy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's not that good. With context, they're supposed to be, they're not.
So,
Thank you.
No, never would they.
you're scrolling too quickly, Kathy.
Not that.
Well, it's in a resource. It's
That's not within an area.
Okay, so
Section.
what's our
Not
next
for-
question?
So,
Is within an area, but will not remove, fill, dredge, or alter.
There we go.
So,
Okay.
but that doesn't have the opportunity for,
conditions.
right,
Then we just have to do it.
yeah.
What conditions would we do anyways?
I'm not doing any silt fences or wattles or anything.
Buffer zone.
It's part of your local DEP regional law.
No conditions, right?
But there's no
Not the way
opportunity for,
it's written.
Right, but I'm just saying, what conditions would we use for,
there's not really construction.
right?
Yeah,
There's no material being removed. There's no silt fences or wattles required, so.
Good point.
Fair enough.
all right, I'll move to issue a negative determination number 2. The work is within an area subject to protection, but will not alter that area.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Lisa?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
August?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore is absent, motion carries. Thank you.
I'll be in contact once I get it completed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming.
Did you sign on the sheet?
No, but I just did it very late. Sure, thank you.
Please.
And if anyone else hasn't signed in up here in person, if you could do so before you leave the room, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay, are we ready to move on? Cassie?
I am.
Okay. Next item, request for certificate of compliance. 99 Glendale Street, Mass. DEP file number 1510081 for construction of new single-family home, map 43, lots 12 and 12A. Expired August 9th, 1991. Request filed April 5th, 2022. Good evening.
I don't remember this one. I was in like 4th grade.
I don't know if this was the original plan. I'm Jim Gracia, by the way, property owner.
Thank you. Okay.
Reason for I never needed this released until now because the bank is requiring it for home equity loan. So this was the original request. I don't know if you had a chance to read the letter I sent in with it, but originally this land was owned by Mr. Boyle, and there was 2 lots. That was actually 3. That were basically, I was going to buy this whole lot, and his son Tom was going to buy this, build on this lot for West Street, Glendale.
Mhm.
And so we put the two requests in under the same NOI, which I know you can't do that anymore. But at the time, there was several that would happen like that. Anyway, after we got the permits, Mr. Boyle decided not to build his house, which I think was a good move. Anyway, so I had some flood storage loss, and this little finger over here where my house was gonna go. We filled that, and basically we filled just past the house, and the rest remained undisturbed as far as the fill. What I'm showing on this plan was proposed compensatory storage. We ended up doing something a little different, but we actually, I went overboard. I definitely didn't want to take any chances.
Create more storage?
I created a lot of
Okay,
storage.
all right,
So anyway,
the right direction.
the little red lines you can see was the original proposal. This was 2 houses, the house and a barn that didn't get built. This was going to be the limit of disturbance. And
What are you
obviously,
even gonna get over there?
it was going to be a real steep driveway.
That was a great idea.
Yeah. I think once you figured out how much fill it was going to take to build it,
Okay,
yeah, this isn't a good idea.
No.
So I ended up
Seems to
buying the
work out
second
quite well.
lot. So I have both lots now. Anyway, we shot all the grades out there just recently and put this plan together to show what we did. Ended up filling a little more in this area than we had originally proposed, but the amount that we did strip off and gain other extra flood storage overcompensated for that. There's numbers here that show original flood.
gonna slide this. Do you guys see
Okay,
it?
there's a second
Oh,
copy
thank
here.
you.
If you can see it.
Let me just do this.
It was. Right to, do the flood loss by the foot.
So net gain?
Yeah.
That's significantly more.
Oh, yeah, I
Okay.
used to created a lot of them.
Okay.
In 2006, we had the last big flood. And I put a pin in the ground at the high water mark. It's pretty darn close. It was actually, the water came up a little higher than the 100-year flood elevation.
When did you
Maybe, yeah, it almost came over the road. It was just on the verge of coming across Glendale Street.
What month?
I think it was April.
Oh. Wow.
But that was the last big, really high. The bridge on Glendale restricts the flow. So the other side of the road floods 4 feet
Yeah.
higher than my side.
I just realized I
But,
can make all these documents for this as well, if you guys want to look at it, other versions. but smaller ones.
So this is now the 100-year flood elevation, 138.
yes,
So even if you were to build up the garage. it would
yeah,
not
it's
be in
well above
jurisdiction.
the
Okay.
100-year. Fortunately, college tuition payments got in the way of that garage. And I still haven't caught up with the cost.
Would you want to still build that garage? I mean, I guess the foundation's done, right? So, and then
There wouldn't be any excavation involved with it.
And that would not, the nearest resource area is PLSF, so there's no buffer zone. So
Yeah.
that wouldn't require any further review by the commission.
I don't know if it'll ever, if me as an owner will do it. I'd love to, but realities of fixed income, so to speak.
Yeah.
So who knows if the new owner, whenever that happens, decides they want to build it.
And then, that retaining wall, that was part of the intersection project.
Yes.
Right, some grading along here too.
Yeah. Yeah, it expanded a little bit this way and there wasn't any flood storage loss on any of this work on the intersection.
Just above 100 is flood elevation.
Because we were, above it. There was some wetland in here.
Yeah,
That,
Phragmites in there.
oh, yeah, jeez.
okay.
Those are impossible to get rid of.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when I did this, my excavator got a little carried away when we were stripping the lot, and he he overstripped out in this area. That's why
So he created
there's
the
a hole
wetland?
there. Yeah, there's a wet area in there. I mean, this is always wetland here anyway, but they extended out a little bit more. And but by the time I got back home from work and saw the yard, what did you do? Fortunately, it worked out. So right now, we hay this field. Right. And all this area is lawn area.
Mhm.
When I bought it, most of this, not all of it, but a lot of this lot had been brush hogged. So there was shrubs about this big. And this area too, now they're 40-foot high red maples and things of that nature. 35-year-old.
Mostly good for that area.
In 1988, there was, commissions were brand new back then.
Yeah.
So it would have gotten a lot more scrutiny today than it did in '88.
Are there any questions from the board?
No questions.
Any questions from the public, remote or in person?
Sure, I haven't received any outside of the meeting. And again, I think everyone here is for other items.
Okay. All right, hearing none, would anyone care to make a motion regarding the request for certificate of compliance?
Motion to issue us CFC 499.
Second. All those in favor, roll call vote. Lisa?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
August? Aye. Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore is absent, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
What is the number you did fill out, Paul, probably? I'll do this as I can do that in.
Great.
All right, next item.
Yeah, I'm going.
Enforcement actions. First item, CFN Properties LLC, complete automotive repair, 10 O'Neill Street, map 114, lot 31.
No updates.
Bernard Gall, 37 South Street.
No updates.
S. Taylor, 18 Pine Street.
They're in attendance.
Hi.
Hi.
All right.
Would you, here's Julia.
Hi.
used to work for us. I did.
Do I need to, should I recuse?
Oh, yeah, you're
Okay.
Yeah. Did you?
She's not coming around. Yeah.
We don't care if you.
And if you, have you signed in?
We will.
We will, thank you. So I guess if you could, Cassie, do you want to take the lead?
So just where it left off was that the commission kind of reviewed this originally back in February. And the determination was made that we should wait until springtime to see what vegetation started growing back, see if we could better see how it was like kind of attached, because everything was frozen when we did that original assessment. So there was an enforcement order issued, but they had a condition on there that they would come back by this meeting to review what the next steps would be. And the commission, I did another site visit with you all.
When did you
The
do that?
21st.
Okay.
Let me double check, but I will pull up the images from that site visit, which would be helpful for evaluation of what y'all would like to have happen to whatever is needed to get to compliance. So. Okay, so site visit is only April 21st. I just need to make sure I share in the Zoom meeting. Okay. So some vegetation has come back since the winter time. Kind of showing the side views. Detail of the dock itself. Not a huge area. Standing on it, kind of just embedded. You kind of tried to lift it while we were there. And it was somewhat embedded in some way. So
It honestly looks like a pretty, kind that stack things on.
Yeah, it looks like a pallet.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
I mean, that's what they've said it was. We didn't install it.
yeah, you can see it's
It's sturdy though.
Yeah, you stood on it.
This is the slope going back up. Side views again from the dock itself. And that's it. So we don't, if anybody wants to go back to any images, I guess the helpful one is how it's attached.
So it's been there a little while. It seems.
But no, I mean, we know it's been the last years.
If you want to add,
Sure.
please, yeah.
Yeah, so when we first got this call, we laughed and said, we don't have a dock in the state. Turns out that the people next door, I guess, put in a dock. And so pictures were taken, and this was put in by our tenant. We had no idea it was done. So we don't really care what happens. It can come out, it can stay in. We could put in a formal dock. I don't know. It's not relevant. So tell us what you want, and we'll go for it. I wouldn't mind. I mean, given the fact that it's such a lovely place on the lake. I mean, it's gorgeous. It really is. I mean, you know, I wouldn't mind putting in a formal dock and making it really nice, but not relevant to us.
So to put in to install a new dock would require permits.
Right.
And that would be whether or not you chose to do that for the property. I think given these views of vegetation reestablishing and kind of encroaching upon the palette, I would want to see as little disturbance of the bank of the pond as possible. And so if there's a way to cut out the majority of those sections and just let nature reclaim the edge that's already overgrown, rather than just yanking the whole thing out, and disturbing it. I don't know how others feel about that.
Well, the edges look pretty much the way I've always seen them. You know, on the sides. I don't remember ever
We
looking
can
different.
100% just take a Sawzall and
Yep,
cut the wood, and a little bit of wood there will just rot away within a season.
But I actually find it a little disturbing. No, I'm serious, because I had not stood on the deck and looked. There is a little, what do you call it? Little embankment kind of going.
Yeah.
down. I think that needs to be fixed.
So is there a photo that shows it better, or can you get up and point to what
Do you
you're?
mean, like over here, this area?
Let it be.
It's sorry, I don't use my cursors. Unfortunately, it's very black. It's my cursor, and then it's like right above where my cursor is. Is that what you're talking about?
No, there's always been a walkway down there.
Yeah, that walkway.
People have
Always
been
walk down it.
using kayaks
Yeah,
there
you're
forever.
right there.
But the answer to the initial fix could easily be just taking a Sawzall and cutting it off and letting nature take its course.
I think that's the least invasive means of addressing this. And I don't have any further recommendations.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me.
Yeah, it's fine.
Whatever you guys want.
Yeah, I think that's it, to remove the exposed portions, properly dispose off-site, and let nature reclaim the area, and then notify the city's conservation agent when that work is to be performed and completed, and
You,
call it a day.
do you Shane to be there when I cut it, or do you want
No,
me to just
just
cut it?
send some photos.
in the picture? Okay, great.
To do that, so that's right.
Just be able
I can cut that without being on the. That's great.
So, it's done, and then the process would be, the commission, do we have to vote to lift the enforcement order, or can I just send them a letter saying this is
I
fulfilled?
think once you've got the photos demonstrating that the matter's been addressed, then
Yeah.
I think that can be
The minutes are enough.
put in the file and send them a letter saying it's all set.
Yeah, and on the record saying it's done.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, I mean, maybe you can't answer this, but given the fact that there is a dock next door, but although I know it was grandfathered in, but they did a nice job. Is that something, if we went through the permit process, that we would likely get or not get? Or what is, how is Easthampton responding to?
We haven't gotten very many requests for docks. I think that one was
It was kind of a repair over
legacy, right? They
existing dock.
redecked the existing,
Yeah.
and we couldn't figure anything else out. And the only other dock I'm familiar with is down on the Oxbow. And that was also permitted through DEP under Chapter 91. So
They really haven't been.
not really. It's not a very big ticket item here.
I mean, it'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Just reach out to me.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
I got it. I got it.
Okay, so I would like to request
Jump ahead.
items out of order.
Sure.
So what do we want to take out of order, Kathy?
I'd like to take item 7I. It's a 7I for the roadway improvements, City of Easthampton, Great Street.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
We have a virtual attendee here.
Okay. Are there any others that we're taking out of order?
Yep, and then we're going to take item 7J, which is the next one. And then I'd like to move down to general business to address 8B, C, D, and E in that order.
Okay. Is there a motion to take items 7I, J, and 8B through E out of agenda order?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Lisa? Aye. Patrick?
Aye.
August? Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore? Absent. Motion carries.
Absent,
All right, item 7I, City of Easthampton, DEP file number 151303 for roadway improvements and maintenance of Ferry Street and Pleasant and Lovefield Streets intersection.
Yeah, so my understanding, Jess Aplin is here virtually. If you can unmute yourself. But basically where it left off was for the invasive species management plan. I have a copy here. The commission had requested information on what specific herbicide was going to be used, just because there was concerns about the proximity to water. They submitted the MSDS sheet for it in the specimen label. And then here's the original plan if you want to pass it around. And yeah, she's here. If you all have questions, I don't know. Okay.
So the proposed herbicide is rodeo, which is approved for use. It's glyphosate, it's approved for use. Your water. And is there timing for this treatment?
As soon as possible, my understanding, yeah.
So are there any further comments from the commission?
Not from me.
Nope.
All right. So
So what do we need?
I don't know. I don't think we need to, no, I think we can just accept the information, put it in the file, and the work can proceed.
Jess, I see you just unmuted yourself. Do you have anything you want to add or questions or anything, Commission?
No, I am
no,
here.
I
and
just-
just-
Okay, I think we're all set with that item then. All right, thank you. Next item, 7J, Easthampton School Committee, DP file number 151305 for construction of a new school building with associated parking, driveway, utilities, stormwater system, track and field facility, site amenities, and landscaping at 200 Park Street, map 157, lot 3. Permit expires August 26, 2022. Good evening. Please introduce yourselves for the record.
I am Joel Kent with Fontaine Brothers, the general contractor. David Boucher with Colliers International. Yeah, so it's just kind of an overview on the project right now. So on April 15th, just completed the second phase of the building itself. So it was turned over April 15th, and currently wrapping up the demolition of the Lakebrook Middle School and kind of transitioned to the second phase of the project. Which is really on the existing former Lakebrook site. So we have much of that area kind of disturbed, and the construction of the track is taking place now. And there's a maintenance building that we've just done foundations for, so it's going up as well. We basically, that whole area had been kind of mostly undisturbed by us. It is now kind of part of our project site. So we're on schedule for August 29th. We're supposed to be substantially complete with the remaining site work. And that is actually, will be up to a 3-year deadline on the order of conditions. So Cassie and I have talked about renewing potentially. I could see some lingering site stabilization, final landscaping, seeding, things like that still going on into the fall. And we'll have as-bills catching up after that and some of the other elements of the order of conditions to catch up on. Kind of like we saw in a few different areas last year. I think I gave before the commission, it was last April actually. I remember it from June. It's just kind of as the spring thaw in some of the new areas that we had disturbed that hadn't been disturbed prior. We've done a site visit with Cassie and kind of discussed where we're going to add erosion controls near the maintenance building, and like we have in pretty much most areas of the site, it's we correct one issue and we push the issue further down the line. And, so we have a couple different areas that we looked at last week with Cassie that we had to do some improvements. So one, we had 2 rows of silt fence and wattles, and we had, kind of runoff that kind of passed through the wattles and the silt fence, still retained its color. So we added a berm that the west of the site to kind of hold that water on site more. Just that the clay soils are so impervious and wanted to hold that water rather than kind of let it drain away.
Yeah, I have,
And there's some silt fences that were knocked over and things like that.
Yeah.
Corrected.
so there's basically what you're describing is from a site visit on the 19th of April. And here's some pictures and just kind of a written description of what it was. And then you guys have since taken corrective action to pass those pictures and everything around too. And I'll show them on here.
Somebody water.
I can, do you want to just go through each one or you?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna read right now.
That takes a spoonful of right size part.
Maybe a tablespoon.
Maybe a tablespoon.
So there were 3 main areas that little things, but the big ones were as listed here. So one was that in the color photos packet, and I'll share those here in a second. It's photos 1 and 2 and 3. So it's basically that outlet area that's not receiving any water. It is some turbid water is collecting there.
Yeah,
and
what's going on there?
it's not connected to anything, that outlet. The inlets are all, like a foot above grade, I think. They're going to be associated with the fields up above. I didn't see any channelization of the, or erosion paths happening to that area. So I don't know where the water is coming from my perspective. I'm not sure. I'll just get the, yeah, press box area. So, yeah, that was.
The area I described was, I don't remember if they were on their list there. Where we had the berm.
Yeah. So this area I'm talking about right now, I'm just going to share. So, and this area was a concern, as well as this outfall or this kind of riprap area that's kind of down farther below, because turbid water was going down that existing swale. In that area, you set a catch basin, and you can all remember water was gathered there. Yeah. That's not there anymore, but there's still that kind of topography that's leading water that way. It was reaching the brook, White Brook down below, turbid water was reaching down there. So following it back up, this is one of the source areas I was thinking there might be, and there's since been erosion controls added along the side there. And then the other area was this riprap.
Where are we on the site?
So now the driveway is up above.
Okay, so is this?
The driveway is up here.
Yeah.
The opposite side is where we have the turbidity curtain currently. Mm-hmm. There's kind of a crossing that goes underneath. The crossing is down below here. You have to travel down to get to it. So this is kind of just south of the driveway. Okay. And this is so
south of the driveway is the The existing
Towards
parking
Treehouse.
lot, yes, and the existing parking lot is to the east of this,
Yes.
to the right of this photo,
Correct.
behind the
Yeah.
photographer.
So this is just, has been holding water. I think that during that major rain event, it potentially could have topped over and some of the water, the turbid water is sourcing from there. But you can see down in the corner, the left corner, it was coming from above as well. So my thought was that it was this area by the press box, this kind of outlet potentially. And it's not as easy to see in this photo, but there was water kind of all up and around this area and down, slopes downwards into this section. So
What was the date of these photos again?
this is from the 19th,
Okay,
yeah, April 19th.
so that was like the 1.3 inch
The day
rain
after.
event? Okay.
Correct. So you can kind of see where it was all coming together. It was here. This is the bottom of the swale and the water is rushing down this way. And it was going pretty fast and it's kind of eddying here, but certainly it's not tamed. So they've added a silt fence here temporarily. A turbidity curtain is coming. This is the plan. So as soon as that arrives, they're going to install it there. And that, I think, is a measure for when there are these significant rain events. Hopefully that will catch it at the end. But if there's more actions, maybe something along here, I don't know.
All right, can you go back to that?
Here.
No. Okay, where? One more.
Here.
So, and that's is that corrugated metal, the existing outfall?
That's the existing culvert that
Culvert.
carries,
Oh.
yeah, the brook
Okay.
carries over to the other
Got
side.
it. Now I know where I am.
Yeah.
Now I can orient myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you go back to that press box photo, see the press box. So the city has the 2-story press box from the old football field stored just to the right here. And it'll get relocated. But kind of in that little alleyway between the temporary fence and the snow fencing there, we did add 2 layers of silhouettes and wattle.
So I can go to those pictures.
Well, Cassie's navigating to those. Has the slip been updated and recertified under the 2022 CGP?
We just refiled.
Okay.
We're under consideration right now.
Thank you. And has the slip been, the updated slip been provided to the city?
I have not sent it.
Okay.
So this is kind of from the other side essentially, but this is that same outlet area and this is the added silt fencing. Bottle. Another picture. This is down below the temporary measure. And then they're going to put in a turbidity curtain.
And so the turbidity curtain is 100-foot lengths, so obviously we'll do a piece of it, but also they're far more effective when they can roll because they're able to filter. So that area is so shallow. We're going to try it. I don't have a lot of hope about it being particularly effective. So I think the more we can focus on upstream or uphill, the better we're going to do that.
I would agree that catching it as close to the source as possible
Yeah.
before it gets into the resource area is the best approach.
So from the property line down, it's about, there's 48 feet of leaf litter, kind of undisturbed area. And just, if the water holds that color across that whole area, and, I'm not gonna find a man-made thing that's gonna take the color out of it at that point, but if that 48 feet of earth isn't. So I think it's more about trying to keep it on site as much as we can. Doing as much as we can to filter it. So
Were there any actions around that riprap area, which it was just kind of holding? I didn't know, and I'm not sure if it overtopped during that major rain event, but it seems like potentially that was a source as well. But
that riprap area that was kind of full in that photo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the action in regards to that is we brought the back track out and cleaned all the structures again. That was something we did last spring that was particularly effective, but just time to do it again now.
okay, so yeah, that's the first bullet point. So the second one was the existing basin in the rear of the property. It's quite large, and if the commission remembers, they came for a change, and it was determined to be a minor change to install an under drain to that area. It was originally intended as part of the plan, and just wasn't included. And that area needs to be, the water that's in there now needs to be removed before you can install that under drain. When I conducted my site visit the water was being pumped out and it was being fed into the new stormwater system. And the discharge, the outlet of that area, when we walked by, you could see the water was coming out turbid from that area and then going down to the stream. So the was not treating that water well enough to be being pumped out that way. But I can show you the photo.
If that was going into one of the newly constructed stormwater treatment facilities, how is that supposed to work when the site is complete and?
The idea that would be that you wouldn't be pumping water out of that detention basin, it'd be sitting there or.
So it will infiltrate?
Or going through the under drain that we were trying to put in.
Okay.
So that under drain was added by change in daylights to the wetlands, basically, or into the buffer zone.
This is the outlet here from where that system, where it was being pumped to, was coming out. So you can see it coming out. And let's see, and then this is the basin itself. So you see it's quite turbid water. It's been there for some time. And then it's leading to the system. It was turned off by this point. So immediately they shut it off. And I'll show you the corrective action photos.
Are the basins infiltrating at all?
Not particularly well. I think part of it is that they're sedimented. So part of what's going to happen when they drain down or pumped off is they're going to be cleaned out. The under drain will be installed and will be loaned and seeded above that area to prevent it from being sedimented again.
So
basically, we ended up using it as a temporary during construction detention basin.
So is your expectation that once the site is stable and construction is not ongoing, that they actually are going to function as expected, or are we concerned about the long-term functionality?
Our concern last year this time was that they were going to retain water like forever, because all summer last year there was water. That led to the introduction of the under drain that will daylight. So the material will go through the bioretention soils, naturally filter, and then daylight out towards the grass area.
okay, so for the issue of for installing the under drain, you can drain out the current pond or your basin area. And so as a corrective action, they've added, the pipe now is pumping into this sack. And then the area, I think we're right in front of the basin. I think this is the silt fence associated with that.
Yeah, so behind me.
And so it's then carrying, I think, what did you say, it was over 100 feet of area for that to just kind of slowly go down. And then the stream is down to the south, or, down the slope from that area.
And this is outside of one of the work.
Here's the sack. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but way back there.
And all that water on the surface is from what's getting pumped through the filter bag?
Yes.
Tight soils down there.
Right.
What's that?
Just the city doesn't have a good history with functioning detention, infiltration basins.
Yep.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions about that? Want to go to the next one? Okay. So the last one was we're actually going up to this area where the corner of construction is. Navigate back. So what was going on was there was that's where the demolition is close to the limited works / the resource areas, and that area, it appears, I didn't see any channeling again from this area, but it appears that it just got overwhelmed from the stormwater, from the rain event, and turbid water got into the wetland area beyond. So let me show those pictures first, and then I'll show you the corrective actions. Okay, so this is the area, the construction or the demolitions to the right, and there's silt fencing here and a wattle, but it
was breaking through.
Yep, and it looked like to me it was going maybe even under, or it was just overwhelmed and went through. It wasn't enough to filter. I'm not sure.
Is the silt fence towed
in? Yeah, it's entrenched. So we'll.
And that's the area. So it went. Again, I didn't see any erosion or channelizing. It looks like it just flowed over into it. And this kind of, it's just like this cloud here, and then the water just to the right is clear, and it was just sitting there.
So what is that resource area we're looking at? And where is that on like an aerial photo? If you could
Yeah,
maybe jump to an aerial photo here, we could.
because I can explain it, but it's, so. How do we explain this? Scroll for some reason. Yes. I know you did. Not cool.
Sorry. Not sorry.
So we are over, it's all changed now, but we're.
Yeah, that's the original footprint of the building, right? Or the original school building. So we're back there.
Way back.
Yeah, we're in this corner back here. Is it this maintenance building? Is that correct? Treehouse is down there, right?
Treehouse is down there. The parking lot and the.
Treehouse. Okay. So this area right here, kind of where it makes this turn. There's the existing tree line here, and none of the trees were removed. I don't believe so. So, yeah, the work is right along.
And so that wetland is where the water is seeping that we were seeing in the picture.
I believe so,
The one we were
yes.
just looking at, it was kind of like cloudy in this corner, and then the rest of it was clear. It was just sitting right here. I didn't see it.
What does it look like now?
So, okay, so now we'll go to the corrective action pictures. So,
It wasn't clear there was a big hole punching through anywhere either.
right, like I
That's why it was
said,
odd.
yeah.
And you know, in all these instances we've had in the past, we found that there hasn't been any sedimentation left behind. Just the fine, it seems to be that the fines are so fine that they're able to pass through the filtration media. Really, very little residue, but.
So this is the corrective action that was taken, was to kind of create this berm here and drench it down there. And now it's going to go up a hill to get even to the silt fence.
Okay.
And this was the area where it seemed like it was going through, it was down at this corner.
That seems like a reasonable interim measure to intercept and.
Yeah, hey, what I keep going back to is where am I driving it now?
Yeah.
You know, we find ways to hold it on site, work around the water. It won't drain from there either, it'll stay there. So we just keep fighting it and try and be ahead of where it's gonna be a problem like that. I mean, the fences and the wattles were added after the thaw. I think, did we do a site visit or it was?
I believe so, yeah.
You know, we thought we were in pretty good position when one good event.
Anyone know when it's gonna rain again?
What's that?
When's it gonna rain next?
This week sometime, yeah.
Yeah.
I think tonight.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be out of control, but.
No, and that was a significant event, obviously.
Yes.
Have you ever tried a flocculant or anything like that?
So the last structure, that picture we have with the riprap slope, the outfall, two flog logs in that last structure, and they can't touch the stuff.
Mhm.
We keep trying and swap them out. Looking at it, taking out contaminants.
So what are we?
So the question, I just wanted to update you all and see if there was other things that you wanted added. Was there other changes? Whatever action you all want to take, but I figured I should show you.
No, it's not looking like a huge storm event tonight.
No.
Good thing.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, later this week. So I guess it'd be good to know after the overnight rain, if this is holding any water. Because I think that will help dictate what happens next. Appreciate the effort.
And we do have the landscapers remobilized and is with the hydro seed truck, and as soon as we can get any area, spraying it. It's the,
Okay.
they're not most effective, but just,
Okay, okay.
just get it in final condition.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, you can just update me tomorrow.
Okay.
Anything else?
All right, well, thank you for your efforts and about it.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Moving on to the next out of agenda order item 8B, 476 East Street.
Yeah, one thing I want to see is if a virtual attendee is here for that. And if
If not, we can always pass it along and go back to it later.
yeah, I don't believe anyone here actually is in attendance for that, so let's come back to it.
All right, so next item after that, 8C, 3 Button Road. Good evening.
How are you?
Hi.
Good evening. You care to introduce yourself for the
Sure. My name
record?
is Nick Whitfield, and we moved into 3 Button on December 1st, right from Westview Terrace. So it was a long move, like 0.2 of a mile. But yeah, we moved in December 1st.
Okay, and what's going on?
So, do you mind if I
No, go
explain
for it.
first? Okay, so, I got a notification, that there was potentially some vegetation clearing happening, in the property. And one of the things that's within the original order for the whole neighborhood, was that, the limits of lawn have to stay the same. And this property in particular, I'll just show you the mass mapper. I'm gonna share it here. The mass mapper kind of shows, kind of almost the whole lot's within the 100-foot buffer zone if this delineation is to be, not a delineation officially, but this projection is to be gone off of. And so, it looked like there had been some vegetation clearing over here and then.
There were monuments
potentially-
behind this property also, right?
Yep, and there are monuments in place kind of showing the original limits of lawn, and there should be. So I sent a letter to you, you got back to me really quickly, and we did a site visit.
Yes. And so I can tell you kind of what happened. We, there's 2 pines, there are 3 pine trees and that we had taken down that are not with any of the conservation areas, just bordering our pool that were sort of trying to lean over the pool. And we're completely wrapped up in vines that sort of kind of destroyed the trees. So I had an arborist come out, take a look, because one of the things we love about the property is the fact that it's got conservation land all around it. It's beautiful. And then there was another tree in one of the conservation areas that during a storm had split maybe 15 feet up in the trunk, the entire top of the tree had come down, laying over the sumacs, which ironically and really enough, Cassie is one of my favorite trees. My dream property had sumacs on it, which most people are like, that's ridiculous. But I know.
They're native.
They're really cool. I think they're very cool. Anyway, so we had a company come in and pluck the pines. And he went through the whole property with me first. Pulled the pines, and then it was a black walnut that had broken. It was created quite the mess in the conservation area. Okay. So he, the pines were easy. They just took them down. And then the black walnut, it was in the conservation area, so I was a little bit nervous about it, what to do, what not to do. So I did some research. So with the crane, I had them just lift the what had snapped off of the tree out of there and leave all the remnants. So because I didn't want anything that could possibly be alive to be removed by a tree company. So they plucked that out and left what you can imagine would be a huge mess, because I think the tree's been down for probably over a year. And so, that's, Cassie has pictures of where that was. It might be easier if they saw that.
Yeah, let's do that now.
And so, okay, so this is the start here. Over here, there's a view over here, right back there with the third walnut right here. And that had fallen this way over all of these sumacs. And all in here, this area was all under the tree that had fallen. So they wrapped seine around a crane and pulled it right out of there and left everything there for me. And then right here, that was a bittersweet that they needed cut down in order to get to the tree. But, so I cut it, but I didn't use any pesticides or anything to kill it. It'll be 5 feet tall by the end of the summer. So nothing, that was the only thing that had to be removed in order to have them get to the tree, safely to get the rope around it. But like I said, no pesticides, anything like that. And then Cassie, if you, the next picture should be that picture of that. I don't know what to do with, and so I'm looking for
There's
recommendations.
the stone.
Oh, yeah, there's this,
And I'll kind of work my way through this. Yeah, this is the tree that had split.
right.
This is the original stump, and so it fell over that way.
And you can see anything that had a sign of life, I left to see if it would continue to grow. I don't want anything removed there because, to be honest, it's a natural barrier as well. So that's what you see. Anything with green on it is left. What all this stuff is sort of remnants of the tree. And it took down a few sumacs with it, which I think is probably the next picture. You'll see stumps.
So this is looking to that area, yeah.
So you'll see some of these sumacs I'm hoping stay alive, but they're down like that because the tree was resting on it. Here, 2 sumacs were pulled out of there, but the bush that was sort of hanging on turned green. We left everything there. But yeah, that was kind of it. And there was.
Yep, I get a lot, so we'll just keep going through, kind of show
Yeah,
you
there's a
all.
lot.
Basically,
It looks like it.
That's me when I'm not suited up. But you can see over here, these are sumacs that came down with it. So I went again through with the arborist and he told me which ones were dead and which ones he didn't know, but to leave it just in case. So those got removed. You can see all these, because this is where the tree was laying down on these. Those were mostly on the ground crushed. But I did that myself because I didn't want them to touch them.
It's just a detail shot of some of
Yeah.
the stumps. Details.
Yeah. Same area. And you can see this is that's the water that comes out. I didn't touch anything around it because that's what connects to one of the streams that connects to White Brook. I love that.
Okay, so moving through the lawn here.
I don't even-
Oh, this is
Yeah,
looking
that's-
back. There's some here. This is the other way towards
And you
the
can
front.
see, yeah, and that's just the other angle. This is looking out towards the road of Button. And this is all, that's all left. That's all the bittersweet and stuff, but nothing was cut out of there.
And that's still within behind the conservation line?
This
Or is that your yard?
You'll see there it is. This is the conservation
Okay.
line. So nothing's been removed from there. Only what that tree took down and killed. But there's bushes under there that are going to come back up. I didn't remove anything. There's no chemicals used. It was just the mess of the tree.
I don't know if you can see near this basketball. That's the marker, the stone marker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The detail shot. I think that was the
That was the
sweet.
one that they had to cut down, but nothing was used. It'll come back.
I think it's pretty reasonable to assume the sumac is going to spread as much as it's allowed to.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
So that will work its way back.
everything in there, I think, is really going to fill back in. One of my questions though is, so you can see where those are the sumacs that I had to pull out because they were uprooted and dead. But I even left the base of it because you can still get new growth out of it if there's some roots. So you see I left the base on all of them with the hopes that we'll get some life out. So that's all the junk that came from the tree that I told them to leave, and all the stuff that was under it. One of my questions is, now I can have it removed. They offered to take it, but I didn't know. So I also thought, do I rent a wood chipper? And can I chip it back in there? I don't know what the rules are about removal. So my thought was to have the company come back and just take it.
Is it bittersweet?
If it's bittersweet, the last thing you want to do is chip it and put it back.
Yeah, if it's invasive, you don't want to like break it up into
Shoot
smaller
the seed,
pieces
shoot
and
the
shoot it all
seeds.
around.
All right.
So I would say remove it from the site
Remove it, okay,
and let the area revegetate naturally.
awesome. And it definitely is, it's already like, you know, pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So this is the same thing, that's,
Now we're working away.
yeah, now we're working to the backyard, this is the buffer back here. And then, all right, so this, what you can do is, this was a vine that I cut that was wrapping around the street, and sort of see it where it left marks with a lot of trees like that. All right, so the next pictures are probably what someone saw me doing and freaked out, thought I was removing trees. But what happened was, it's laying on the ground. So they said about 4 years ago, the folks that came out said there was a pretty intense weather event, and Cassie said there was off our property, other people's property, there's some trees down. And see so they thought it was a microburst, sort of small, because many of these tree trunks are twisted around and the trees on the ground. So when we looked at the house in September, it was beautiful and green back there. Then when we moved in December, oh, what the hell happened back there? Because there's like 8 trees, you can see these. These are all the trunks of the trees that are twisted and laid down. This is all the buffer area. And so I went back there, and all I did was, again, left the stump, cut off the dead tree, and pulled it out of there because it's like a tinderbox back there. And I was nervous if lightning strikes, if there's anything, it's going to go up. And so there was about 9 or 10 trees, some good size, which we have a picture of, laying on the ground. So you can see, and I had Cassie sort of look closely because pictures don't really do it justice, but they're not just a tree that's fallen down. It's been sort of kind of violent. These are all stumps of trees that were on the ground. None of the roots are really attached. It's pretty insane. And then there's one area that I left. So, and then you're starting to go up that back hill that you saw. I had Cassie take pictures of this because these trees back here were not freshly cut. Someone cut those well before we moved in, but they left the tree, which was kind of them. But you can see how this is not a fresh cut. And so that I removed, just literally grabbed the tree and pulled it out of there. So this is the trees that were down when we moved in, but they're sort of beyond the edge of the property.
Yeah, this is kind of.
These I didn't touch.
Yeah.
But this is what it looks like, the whole bag, that's what it looks like. Like this.
Yeah, that's looking bad. This is kind of, you said the vegetation was
Oh,
laying
yeah.
down before the tree had fallen.
You can see where I pulled them out of the vegetation because the path is still there where the tree was laying in the vegetation. Same thing, but you can see the growth that's coming back, but this is the path where the tree was laying in there. It was a big tree.
Now we're moving back down farther.
Right, so this is, you can see that any tree that was starting to become part of the earth, I just left. So you can see like this tree is laying down here. It was older, so I just left it. I only removed stuff that was, no. So this, oh yeah, okay, so that's the picture that this is the evidence of a microburst, because if you look at the trunks of these trees, giant bushes, I don't really know what they are, but they're all twisted and laid down. But there's new growth coming out of them, so I didn't touch them. I didn't remove the dead stuff because there's new growth coming out of them here like this. See? Yeah, it's pretty insane if you see it. Because this at one point stood straight up. It's all twisted and cracked here. But there's new growth coming out of it, so I didn't touch it. Plus, it's just kind of cool, and there's animals and stuff in there. So. All right, so this over here was the pine tree. If you look at the picture from a different angle, it looks like
There's more pictures, so yeah,
okay.
that's the marker there. These are the pine trees.
All right, so this was not us, that was already there, but that's one of the pine trees. And then these two here. So the marker's over here, and it goes this way. This is not part of the conservation. But what I did was, when they took pine trees down, I raked it. That's just a rake. But this, you see these trees? These are all the dead trees I pulled out of there. And all the stuff that kind of came with it. None of it alive. So I showed Cassie that when she came out, all this stuff is very brittle, dead wood. That's been down for a long time. But that's the extent of it.
So the
Oh, so this is, and like, you see like, the base of these vines, so these vines are wrapped around these trees. That's what's killing off some of the trees, so I just cut the base of the vine to hopefully see
I
the
think
trees.
this is like the example.
But that's it. So I
so
think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no. So the long and short of it is, someone thought you were doing
Somebody thought I was cutting down a whole bunch of trees.
sure in the buffer zone and on conservation land. Cassie, do you have any recommendations?
I mean, essentially just the big thing from the deed in the order is to not expand the lawn from where the markers are. So certainly letting it revegetate in the area that you raked your thing, that's your,
That's not
Land,
protected land, that's just next to the pool, but I don't intend to do anything with it. I just got rid of the pine needles and leaves.
yeah, everything beyond where those stone markers are supposed to be vegetated naturally. Should
Unmanaged.
create lawn. So, yeah, that would be my recommendation. We do allow that to carry out. I don't know if there's any other issues or concerns.
When we talk about conservation land, is it your property, but
It's,
outside of the lawn, or is it actual town conservation property?
so it's my, so the mark, if you go back to one of those pictures, you can see it. They came out and marked our property, it goes way back there, and so it's our property, but it's conservation land.
So, right, so this is one of the deed restrictions.
Yeah.
That was part of the whole mitigation package for the,
That makes
for the
sense.
subdivision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where limit of future disturbance was established and marked in the field.
Which is, again, one of the reasons we love this property,
Sure.
because it's protected.
I mean, this is
And
the
it's
best
beautiful.
show of it. These markers
Yeah.
kind of were here and here.
Sure,
and here,
like-
you know.
Those are the markers. in
Specific
our property
envelopes of
line is, like,
development.
Back here.
Yeah.
It's all marked out.
So thoughts on, I think just allowing the area to revegetate. And, acknowledgement that the markers are the limit of lawn and future disturbance. And I don't, I think if you want to have that material hauled off-site, then that's the best possible
It's probably good.
outcome for
Yeah.
everyone.
So we hold a conservation restriction on the area, or
Is it a
somebody
C-
does,
Is it
or
a CR proper, or is it just?
I don't know. This is before my time.
I know.
The area
Too long
into
ago.
there, I think not. It's not the extent of the CR itself, but I know there might be a CR. I know there's other parts that are like.
But this is like, this was established in the order of conditions as
Yes.
permanent monumentation, so it's effectively the same.
Yeah,
So I think, I think we're done. I think you can have that stuff removed, removed and properly disposed off-site.
Yeah.
And then just allow the area behind the markers to revegetate.
Yeah.
Naturally. And then, manage the area within the markers
Yep.
as you see fit.
Awesome.
I guess what I'm wondering is if you wanted to continue doing some kind of management, invasive removal, that kind of thing, if there's a mechanism for us to allow that rather than just, because right now we'd be saying allow it to revegetate with whatever grows back and then let
Maybe that could be the mitigation that we require annual management of invasives by the property owner.
Like cutting them down?
What you've done, cut the
bittersweet off,
bittersweet off.
so it's not straight.
Yeah.
And if we require that through this action, then it's
well, maybe not require it, but allow it.
a lot, well, yeah.
Because it's not, right now, that requirement isn't tied to anything beyond, I don't know what it would be tied to, because we haven't issued an order or anything like that. So it's just gonna be a request from the commission.
I would love to be able to continue to cut those vines that are
Yeah.
killing the trees or weakening them, and then a storm brings them down.
We issue an enforcement order that requires, that allows the management of invasive species
I don't know, I
through
think that,
mechanical means.
I think you could do that. What I don't know is if having the enforcement order issued could become an issue because that sounds like it would never be lifted. It would just exist so that we could have this thing allowing them to do that.
It doesn't encumber the title.
Okay, yeah, that was my question.
As long as it never gets reported, it doesn't encumber the title.
Okay.
So
Then you have a
I
record.
think Yeah, and that could just be a friendly enforcement order to facilitate.
Sort of continue to do what I'm
Yeah,
doing by
yeah.
taming the vines and,
Yeah.
and does that include like the bittersweet and things like that? Okay. I would love to do that because what we have, what Cassie saw to it, I don't think the pictures really do it justice, but what's coming back, what the arborist had said is that when you get rid of this stuff, you're gonna get some really cool stuff back here. It used to be a farm. You get hay and stuff like that, just natural grasses, and there's some like swamp grasses that are the remnants of what was there. So the idea would be, I would like to keep maintaining what's there because the natural beauty of it is what we love about it. But those vines are incredible what they can do. I mean, some of them were, on the picture of it, I can't take a picture, it was like this thing that was killing off the tree.
I'm concerned about the enforcement order route for doing this, because I wonder if, it specifically will want me to fill out parts where, why it's a violation, what action was a violation, what's the remediation, what do they want us, what do you want them to
You
do?
want them to manage the invasives.
Okay, yeah, we can just do it that way.
Can we issue a determination of applicability without being requested?
No.
Do that. Before, and I don't know if this is a good way to do it, but, I remember there was that mowing happening near River Valley, and it was just in the minutes that the commission had said you can mow there, and that was seemingly enough to be like, oh, I guess I can't. So I don't know, that at the time, that was like, okay, we're gonna do that, and DEP was like, yeah, you guys have it in the minutes, so I don't know if you remember that, that was like a long time ago, it's pre-pandemic, but it'd be something that just,
Was there such a thing?
yeah, right? It feels like a long time ago.
Weird things that I've ever
Feels like a long time ago. But, so I don't know if potentially, I'm perfectly willing to do it this way, but it might be easier or sufficient to have it be recorded minutes so I can send them a
We can
letter.
just make a motion and you can send them a copy of the minutes.
Okay,
You want to do that? Make a motion to allow the continued mechanical management of invasive species, but not the use of herbicides and or uprooting.
And we're not using any of that stuff back there.
I figured.
Yeah, we would never do that.
so I would
We have
probably,
deer every morning, red foxes and things like that. We're good.
and I could include a letter, just kind of more formally reiterating all of that.
Sure.
No problem.
Yeah, that sounds better than an enforcement order. If it's a friendly one to me.
Even if we call it friendly? All right, so did anyone want to make that particular motion?
I'll make this motion as discussed.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote, Lisa. Aye. Patrick.
Aye.
August. Ryan.
Aye.
Whittemore absent with notice, motion carries.
Thank you very much, guys. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
All right,
Thanks.
have a good evening.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Did you sign in on?
I did, yeah, I'm on there. Yep. And so it's just now I have permission to control the invasives.
As long as the lawn doesn't actually expand.
I'm not cutting more lawn. So, thank
You
you,
can
guys.
always make your lawn smaller.
Yeah, right. Thanks, guys.
Okay, next item, 8D, 63 Strong Street, preliminary review. Thank you for your patience, sir.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Can you introduce yourself? for
My
the
name's John
record?
Lucido. This is my property at 63 Strong Street. I don't have a lot of official stuff because this was very last minute. Cassie let me come and just show you this because basically we're trying to make a determination whether I should get an RDA for this project. So I'm looking, this is a permitted accessory apartment on my property here.
Permitted building?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I want to build a deck off the back here that wraps around. And I just sketched this because my architect wasn't available, but it's just a wraparound deck here, right?
Okay.
So, but the issue is that White Brook is here.
So 200-foot riverfront area?
So, yeah, what's this line?
This is White Brook.
That's the brook itself. Okay.
Yeah. And so this building was already signed off by conservation when I built it, but this deck is going to come off the back. And so the piers of the deck are actually going to be about 40 feet from White Brook. Okay. So, but what I did do is I found a guy who's going to do helical piers. So what he wants to do is drive the piers on the side, and we're going to build these side decks. And then he's going to drive back here and drive the piers is this meadow goes down about 15 feet to White Brook. So this is up 15 feet from here. So it's going to be almost a zero impact because he's not going to drive in the meadow, first of all, near the brook. And he's going to come across here and reach in and drive these piers from the deck of the actual structure here.
So what was the original, sorry, I can't see. What was the original permit for this?
Was there a limit of work originally, or?
It's,
The Conservation Commission.
it was to renovate a barn. And I have that here. I just have the signatures.
What year was that?
Well, the construction began in 4, actually, but this just became an accessory apartment last year.
Okay. So now, Kathy, can you pull up 310 CMR 1002 2B?
Yes.
Thank you.
And so my understanding of the exemption for a single family home is that you can have a deck, but it has, or no, a number of accessory things like a bed or whatever, but it has to be at least 50 feet away from the.
Yeah, it's usually, but yeah, I
There's
just want to look.
helical piles. I'm gonna pull it up, but.
Yeah, and is it in the maintained, is there like a maintained lot or is this the existing tree line?
No, that's
So
trees.
you'd have to cut to put the deck?
No, and actually, I just emailed you a picture if they wanted to see it, but there really isn't any.
Yeah,
So
so
what,
it might just be the setback.
I could send a lot more
from the water
pictures.
line, But let's,
but basically what you have is there's a meadow down here and then a pretty steep hill that goes up to this structure here. And there isn't really any significant trees except for one here, which I'm not going to touch. And that's the other reason I want to do the helical piles, right? Because if you dig a sonotube down here and put a Bigfoot,
yeah.
you're not going to actually reach ground level. And I'm afraid that they're going to come off the hill.
Okay.
So this guy's going to drive down to actually ground level here until he gets his 6,000 pounds of pressure on the pile.
So I think you need to file an RDA because this doesn't fall under the exemption. Potentially, well, actually, no, let's not say that. What's your scale here? You have a scale?
Yeah.
Yes. 1 inch equals 30 feet. Do they have a scale?
Yeah.
I think so.
It may very, maybe very close.
Yeah.
The helical piles would be. So I think the belt and suspenders approach, and I'm still coming at this from, do you recall, Jay?
Yes.
Dan, when
No.
Mass DEP issued an enforcement order against the Rod and Gun Club for
Oh.
their pole shed in floodplain
Right.
because the commission at the time didn't want them to have to pay for the legal notice to go through an RDA. And so
Right.
the chair at the time just signed off on their site plan
That they could anchor.
that they could put these poles. So DEP 10-ish, whatever years later, was doing their aerial surveillance
What's that?
and determined that there was a structure and they had to, it went through enforcement with DEP. So what I don't want to see is something like that happen. So if you could,
So this concern is for the neighbors who would see the construction.
Mass DEP does aerial comparison of aerial photos.
Okay. No, I don't want to
and
mess
so-
with that.
No,
And I'm prepared to do it. So I
think-
just want to
think
know.
Given the nature of what you've described and how close you are to the potential exemption, it makes sense to file an RDA commission. Because, you're within the 200-foot riverfront area of White Brook, but it seems like an appropriate administrative mechanism for you to get the sign off you need and run with it.
Great, no problem.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to know. And I'm meeting with my architect next week, so I'll have
Oh, yeah.
all of this up redrawn with this deck on it. And I'll send that to you, and then I'll just communicate with you about the advertisement.
That sounds good. Yeah, I'm here to help you through that process, so.
Great.
And you're all signed in, right?
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yep,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next, last item out of order, 8E 40 Chapin Street.
Yeah. I know Kate Schechter is here. She's the property owner, and then you have Kate, there's a person representative here with you who's actually been doing the work. I don't know if you want to go first, but I can explain first, if it's all right with you, what's going on there. Okay. So, and a butter reached out to me. They were concerned about work that was happening around this property at 40 Chapin. They were primarily concerned about stormwater. There was some trenching happening on the property, and they were concerned that it was potentially directing stormwater onto their property. And I didn't know, if that was potentially a violation of the stormwater ordinance. And I don't even know what the mechanism is of enforcing anything that would be a violation of the stormwater ordinance.
So wouldn't that pertain to area of disturbance?
Well, yeah, so that's the thing. Most projects are exempt, if they're under 10,000 square feet. But the way it was worded, it seemed like to me, as long as it's meeting these performance standards. And if it's not meeting the performance standards, then it might not meet the exemption anymore. This is new territory for me. So I wasn't sure to check with you. And then the other part of it, so I did a site visit, and I spoke with the construction people who were there. They're really helpful and explained it to me. Let me take some pictures. And for, the property owner's part of it, she's only been there for 3 months, I believe. She was not able to be in the property for a number of months after buying it. And I can let you, if you want, Kate, you can explain that, just to kind of give a little backstory to the work. And then potentially, Steve, it sounds like you might be able to speak to the technical side, but it might be helpful for me to first share my pictures from the site visit, if that's all right. Okay. I'll share that. So what I also was concerned about was proximity to the wetlands.
Are there wetlands?
So there's Reservation Road and then Chapin Street. In between there, potentially, there are wetlands. I don't believe they've ever been delineated, nor that they show up on the mass map. Or there's like streams that show up there, but not necessarily like a polygon showing like stuff.
But that's just a guide.
Yeah, exactly.
Planning tool.
So what I'll show you from my pictures is that it might be over 100 feet away, and I think that might be the case here. There's definitely like a stream area, and then there is some skunk cabbage kind of closer to where this trenching was happening. But let me make my way back over there. The good decoration.
Good thing got this sorted out.
So site visit was on April 21st, and let me make sure I share Zoom so everyone else can see. So I'm starting, this picture is going to start at the wetland. That's definitely, this is.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I see buttressed.
And you'll be able to see the house, not in this picture.
Okay.
Kind of looking over, there's the house. Here's this. And
Okay. So how far are we from that wet area?
it's hard for me to tell, and I don't know if, like, there's certainly the wet area and then this, but I don't know if there's more wetlands, that it's just not physically surface water there, but it still is wetland. So I'm not sure how close that is.
Yeah, I guess it's difficult to determine what jurisdictional resource areas may be present based on this photo alone, without having landscape context.
Right. So that's kind of the start of it. And then this is right at the property. So the house is to the left here.
Yeah.
And I saw, it looked like maybe some skunk cabbage growing here. And this is a trench that was being built along the rear of the property line, right along the property line there, not, into the woods, but there's water in it, in the trench. Carrying on, this is looking into the trench. And then this is, the house is to the right here. There's other work that was kind of going down towards the road. And this is where the majority of the work is happening, is they're doing a trench around the house to kind of work on there's drainage issues, major drainage issues inside the house, due to a remodel that was done incorrectly a number of months ago. And now they're coming to fix the work, and they're creating it. The work is behind me right now where those machines were, and they're making a new trench down towards the street here. And Steve may be able to correct me if I have this wrong, but there's something about putting in a new catch basin here, potentially, working with DPW. They would have to speak to that. Might be able to give more information just looking back up. And so this part is kind of where the stormwater ordinance concern came up. And I was thinking like, okay, so then could it potentially be, if it's not with the Wetlands Protection Act, is this an issue for the stormwater ordinance? But ultimately, the final, I mean, some of the water was pooling in this area and maybe going towards the house, the grass was wet here. But the ultimate solution to this drainage issue seemed to be like would be beneficial to the people downslope of them in the end, because they're gonna do a number of plantings in this area, and then direct the water to where that trench was going towards the road. And yeah, this is kind of still just like that end point. And this is a property marker, and again, end point to the road. So I guess this is the other person's yard. Okay, so I guess it probably makes sense to turn it over to Steve or Kate, whoever wants to go first.
Should we determine first whether this is in our jurisdiction?
That's,
Yeah, I think,
yeah, I don't know.
that is really the big question. You know, I think we need to put a little more time into determining whether or not the Conservation Commission even has jurisdiction to be talking about this, because sometimes, and it's happened along East Street before, you know, we didn't have a say in the matter. It just wasn't appropriate for this board. It didn't fall within this board's purview. And so I think that's kind of that like textbook step one is, do we even have the authority to comment on this situation?
And that's what I didn't know if under the stormwater permit, if it would be, because the way that it was worded, I was looking at this with some other people in the planning department there, because that was my thought, was like, there's not really a way to pursue enforcement of the stormwater ordinance as far as I could read it, but it did seem like it fell under the Conservation Commission, or was it planning board? I don't know who would ensure that there is compliance.
So if there's no Conservation Commission jurisdiction, then it falls to the planning board to deal with the stormwater ordinance. So I think the first question is whether there's sufficient distance between the wetlands, wherever they may be on the site, and the work that's going on.
And if the wetlands are subject to Wetlands Protection Act jurisdiction.
Right, because they may not be on the mountain because of the weird stuff that happens.
Right, so if there's not a jurisdictional resource area up gradient of that, I mean, we're getting into the point in the growing season where we might be able to see whether or not there's an up gradient area that's 50% or more wetland vegetation. But if there's not, and it's just seasonal
stream,
right, then that is not a jurisdictional intermittent stream with a buffer zone under the Wetlands Protection Act, which makes everything that comes off the side of Mount Tom really tricky, because you would have to be able to understand what's upstream in order to determine jurisdiction downstream.
And secondly, it doesn't sound like there's any change in impervious cover on the site. Is that correct? Is there any new paving or hard surfaces going in? So I'm not sure that there's stormwater. Would there be stormwater jurisdiction? If there's no.
So my recollection of the stormwater ordinance, and we could bring it up, would be that the intent was that if there was a Conservation Commission action, then the Conservation Commission was the stormwater permitting authority.
Right.
If there was a planning board action but no Conservation Commission action, then it would be the planning board.
Right.
But if there was no jurisdiction by anybody, but still a stormwater thing, then it would be the Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
Didn't the city engineer come into play?
But the city engineer, I believe the intent was that the city engineer would have a say in the matter and enforcement authority for small projects.
I think that's why we were thinking it was the Conservation Commission, if there was a need for.
Yeah, but we had an enforcement issue come up once before, and under the stormwater ordinance, in I don't know how long we had that, 12 or 14 years or something, and it ended up kind of in the same unclear spot. So I think we said that at that time, if the stormwater ordinance was to ever be updated, that this would be something that should be better defined.
But would it cover, I can't remember, does it cover projects that don't increase impervious at all?
I think if there's a discharge to a resource area,
But is there a discharge to a resource area?
yeah. And it seems like maybe there wouldn't be.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure that there's any, it's not clear at this point that there's any jurisdiction under either.
yeah,
So I think the commission needs to determine whether or not there's jurisdiction. Cassie?
What should we do to do that? Like, I can go out and get more pictures and try to see if there seems to be, I just don't know.
Is that another site visit?
well, I mean, if there was going to be new stormwater things connected to an existing stormwater system or be piped to a resource area, then
So where, I guess that
yeah,
could, from a stormwater perspective, that catch basin that may be going into the road is going to tie into more catch basins, right? So where do those ultimately discharge?
Can we say something about that?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
please.
Can Steve say something about that? Because some of the information is wrong.
Yep. So pretty much as far as the catch basin goes, I did have a member of the DPW arrive on site that day as well, the same day that Cassie came out. And I discussed with him potential options of stormwater discharge and what might eventually happen with the water. And what we decided on was that we were going to sink all the water on the property. So where the pictures were of that area that looks a little bit more of like a muddy pond. What we did was we built a catch basin, an above ground catch basin lined with stones that allow for the water to infiltrate on site. And essentially,
Go ahead.
yep. And then after that, the next part of the project then would be planting all native white pine and rhododendron, hellebore, daffodils underneath all the red maple trees that are also on the property border there. And then that channel in the first couple pictures that was running along the back of the property line. What that is that's just a seasonal discharge water area that does fill up in the springtime. And the flow of that river is impeded on the neighbor's property by the falling leaves, and during the fall time when they would blow all the leaves into the center of the property line there. So that's why there was a lot of pooling underneath the maple trees on the other property owner's side. And then our catch basin is also strategically located to where it would also be able to sink that water if the other property owner decides to tie into it. And that will keep the water from going into the street and causing issues. And it will also allow the water to be able to sink on site.
So that certainly addresses the question of discharging from the site.
Yep.
It's not going to happen.
yeah,
So that's off the table.
Yep.
So there's still just the question of whether or not those wet areas are subject to the Wetlands Protection Act, and if they are, what the distance of the disturbance to those is.
From what I found on the mass mapper, I wasn't able to delineate any wetlands, and I was able to see marked wetland areas also along East Street, but though nothing along Chapin Street that would subject us to the buffer zone or within the 35-foot no-touch zone.
So I appreciate that you checked Mass Mapper. That's a great first step. The caveat on that data layer is that it's subject to field verification. So just because a wetland isn't mapped through Mass Mapper doesn't mean it's not potentially present in an area. So that's typical of, the drainage is coming off Mount Tom toward East Street because of the steepness of the slopes. So not all of those drainages end up being subject to the Wetlands Protection Act because they don't always form wetlands up gradient of where we see the stream channels. So that's the piece we're talking about having some verification of.
Okay. And yeah, so I guess if it's sufficient, I can go and do more involved, look through the woods there and go up and take a closer look, and share those images.
Yeah,
with y'all.
that sounds like a good next step,
Okay, yeah.
but no enforcement action until we can, no discussion of next steps until we figured out if that's appropriate or not. So I don't think the commission needs to do anything this evening. Okay?
Okay,
So-
yeah. So just so making sure it makes sense for everyone virtually, Kate, if I can do another site visit, if that's all right with you, I'd like to do that and just kind of from your property, kind of go up, see what I can find up above.
That's fine. Just let's plan it because I'm working from home.
No problem. Yeah, I'll give you a call tomorrow and we can go from there, or email, whichever you prefer. But I can
Yeah, call me.
touch base with you tomorrow.
Yeah, call me.
Okay, awesome. Great. All right. Then I'll be in touch tomorrow.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
bye.
Thank you both for your patience.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Take care.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, so let's resume agenda order. Are there any open space updates?
No updates.
Any other compliance updates?
Let me double check. I think not. No other compliance updates.
All right.
Did I see something about an RCOC for the West Street, Loudville, Farmer Meadow?
That was originally one of the emails sent to all, was that tentatively going to be on the
Okay.
agenda, and it was, I took it off, and the only reason it was originally included is because Jim Gracia, his name is on the permit for that as the applicant.
Oh, yeah.
The property, and the bank was like, you have another permit, and you have to get that, you have to get a COC for that.
He was the city engineer at the time.
And I was like, there's a lot of permits with your name on it.
Yeah.
You're not
No.
gonna be able to get
No.
them. So he talked to them again, and they were able to.
Okay.
But just as a precaution, I was like, okay, well, we can try to pursue this if we need to. I mean, it'd be nice to get a certificate of compliance for that anyways, but that not being the case anymore, the city didn't want to pursue at the time the certificate of compliance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that when he was here, but then.
Oh, yeah.
So, meeting minutes from April 11th, those are being tabled to the next meeting. We've gone through B through E. F, potential new conservation commissioner.
Yes, so, well, actually, we didn't do B.
We didn't do
continued that
B?
because there wasn't a person anymore.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
I was confused
476
earlier.
Street. Is anyone here?
I don't see any.
I don't see anybody.
Oh, they're all gone.
Everyone's
Okay.
gone. So, yeah, just as an
476
update, we
Street.
did the site visit, and where the commission left it was
One
that,
with the removal of the,
yeah.
Yes,
okay.
it is.
The removal of the what? Sorry.
I'll show you
the picture,
She has pictures, trees.
all the trees that got removed at the border of the property.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was the question of like, what does the commission want to see have happen there? She planted those like 50 balsam pines. And some of them survived.
Is it too wet for them?
I don't know. I didn't think so.
Also, they were this big.
Yeah, they were tiny.
So,
I would have eaten them
Oh,
myself.
you planted so many. Our versus Hazelwood.
okay, so. Way down to it. And so the question still remains like, does the commission want to enforce an order for some kind of, rehabilitation of that area? Was it okay to do that and it's done? Or is there letting it grow back naturally and issuing an enforcement order to like check up at a certain time to make sure that happened? Or I suppose any action that you all want to take. The concern about the maintenance of the stormwater system, so it seemed like was being maintained correctly. Everything was clear, the soils were clear, the culvert was clear. So let's see, here's the.
Do we know that that's a jurisdictional area?
Gradient is jurisdictional, so.
Oh, yeah, that's.
They got a permit for the house to be constructed originally. I want to say, I can go back to see what. 1997. So, and at that time, there was some kind of, this is the stormwater structure. I'm going to go zoom through these to get to the part where the vegetation clearing was. If anyone wants me to stop, let me know, but you can see through it there. That's a little bit.
So that moves through a defined channel.
Yep.
And as I recall, it was like a red maple
Yes,
forested wetland on the slope down gradient of the driveway.
exactly. That's what that plan is indicated from 1997.
I can remember that.
So it all leads to this catch basin here that,
Where is that catch basin?
this is on East Street.
Okay.
So DPW came out and
Rip-rap.
put the riprap in there and cleared it out and did not talk to us beforehand, so that was something else.
It's not a painfully obvious wetland. And as I recall from the previous time, that was used, at least anecdotally, that was a much more defined swale before someone got concerned about their kids falling in it.
Oh.
And they kind of filled it in.
Oh, interesting.
And then they had problems with water backing up.
Is that, I don't remember. I don't remember that part. And I'm not just saying that, I honestly don't.
I think that was a moment where kind of a light went off, and I was like, wow, you made your own problem.
Yeah, right.
That's brilliant. Okay.
So DPW potentially came out and kind of undid that maybe. That did happen, and so
Seems rather channel-like. And it's coming from a jurisdictional resource area. So that is a jurisdictional stream.
Yeah.
So it seems as though the cutting of mature trees was violation.
So the tree cutting, that was originally explained that they had an arborist come out. One of the trees dropped a limb on the neighbor's property / potentially on the house, I think, if I remember correctly. That's what was explained to me. And so they were concerned about more limbs falling on their neighbor's structures. And the arborist determined that they were all infested with carpenter ants and not in good health. I tried to talk to her about potentially getting that original assessment or invoice or something, and she hasn't been able to get them sent to her again. She doesn't have it. The number of trees, there was a question, and I'm remembering now, like, would this have been something that would be covered by our new tree cutting policy, though that wasn't in place at the time that these trees were removed.
Right.
I think we were curious, just, you know, just to
How it would have-
test ourselves.
For sure.
Yeah.
So perhaps since trees, you know, what species were they? Red maple?
She told me. I have it. Oh, actually, I think I have it in this. I think we should have trees go back.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So identify the species that were removed and require a one-to-one installation of saplings.
Appropriate size
Of
match our
well, okay, yes, okay, yes. And then an X year annual monitoring requirement to determine whether or not the saplings are becoming established or if they are not surviving and need to be replaced or otherwise supplemented.
And so is that something we want to do through an enforcement order?
Yep.
That whole area too, when we went, is just covered in shavings.
It's all wood chips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wood chips,
They just chipped everything in.
all the
So-
whole area, all the way to the base.
Was it just grass before though?
You have, I have like,
Oh, do we have
I
Google
think
Street
that
View?
map or shows it as being, kind of just brushy, like all kinds of stuff down here.
Can we do Google Street View?
Yeah, yeah.
When
I
I
feel
went
like
to,
that would be the.
when I went to Google, they showed a 2018 picture and it was just
Yeah.
covered
Filled in,
in, yeah, completely filled in.
I think of Eddie Call when I hear somebody talk about wood chips now.
There it is. So, no, sorry.
That's the other side.
He lives out on the level.
There.
Oh,
There's our
Wood
catch
chips
basin.
everywhere. We're talking about wood chips.
yeah.
Let me get a side view.
Where's the tree that was right at the end?
That's still there.
Oh, okay.
Still there. It just, DPW came and kind of made it clear, go more around it.
Oh, okay.
The riprap and then like, yeah. But this probably is the best view.
So maybe, and or just don't manage within 5 feet of the top of the bank,
Let it revegetate. Is that what you mean?
and or shrubs, either or. I mean, who took all the shrubs down?
I'm assuming it's at the same time as the tree removal.
So maybe there should be a requirement for shrubs.
I just kind of thought maybe they got squished.
This counts too.
Yeah, that's pretty clear.
They're still there. They're just
Yeah,
squished.
there's nothing there now.
Yeah, it's just, it's clear. cut.
So I would say count the stumps, 1-to-1, or restoration tree replacement policy, per the policy,
Okay,
and then intermediate shrubs and cessation of mowing within 5 feet of the top of bank to allow for native vegetation to reestablish, provided it doesn't choke out the shrubs and saplings. With how many year post restoration monitoring? 3-year post restoration monitoring. Annual, biannual? Annual report to the commission on the status of the health of the trees. Commission may require additional or replacement plantings as necessary based on survival of restoration plantings.
and the shrubs should be natives.
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. So just making sure I check everything for the enforcement order. I think you guys had to vote to issue one. We would want to plant, it sounds like, okay, findings, that's all pretty straightforward. We don't want a new NOI. Return to their original condition. Okay, so it sounds like we want to check off immediately cease the said activity. Resource area alterations resulting from said activity shall be corrected and the resource areas returned to their original condition. A restoration plan shall be filed, the issuing authority on or before a certain date.
Yeah, they should.
For the following, what you described earlier. Not an NOI though.
No.
And then, yeah, okay, cool. So that's how I'll fill it out. And I guess if someone.
Okay. So is there a motion to issue the enforcement order as the restoration plan as discussed?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Roll call vote. Lisa?
Aye.
Fletcher?
Aye.
August?
Aye.
Do you have further, Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore absent. Any further discussion?
Nay.
Motion carries.
Okay.
8F, potential new conservation commissioner?
Yes, okay, so I was confused earlier. There was, okay, so we've received two applications and the mayor does the appointing.
Yeah.
But she asked if we should make a recommendation. And we currently have 1 seat, but potentially we now have 2 seats available. I don't know, Melissa.
So this is my last.
What?
As a commissioner, meeting as a commission member. I submitted my resignation effective tomorrow.
A motion to put Julie in charge.
I second that motion.
Additional discussion? Yeah. Make that call tonight.
I appreciate all the time I've spent with you folks, but my attention's needed elsewhere right now.
Jeez.
And for the record, how many years have you been on the commission?
I think it's actually only been 15.
Before you even chair, yeah, so.
I'd like to make a motion that we invite Melissa back at any time.
No.
Well, we can invite you, you can deny. We're gonna make that motion at every meeting.
We could go create a situation on her property where she has to come back.
But seriously, it's a huge public service. You've dedicated a huge amount of time to this.
Thank you.
All volunteer, like, it's amazing. So I just
Like
wanted
all
that to
of
be
you.
said. Can we?
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it, and I'm glad the board is in such good hands and that we have Kathy and the rest of you with your institutional knowledge. Who gets the keys?
I guess I'll take them until we have a new chair.
How are we gonna do this without mom?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Do you want
welcome.
this little thing?
That
Okay.
was from Kelly.
That's Kelly's, yeah, that's horse
That's
parts.
legacy.
Horse parts.
Yeah.
Gosh, wow.
First sale.
Hard to believe.
Well,
So commission members,
as a result, we have 2 spaces and we have 2 applications. I can give you a little brief overview of them too, if you want.
sure.
Is there any wetland scientists in that bag?
Well, actually, so there's 2 candidates. One was Mr. Hal Weeks. He attended the meeting previously just to watch and just, see how it goes down, and y'all can, I linked you to these applications they pass around here in a second, but he is a retired, gosh, I want to say, he used to work for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. He's like a fish conservation biologist. I'll pass it around. He worked for North Lake Fishery Management Council, U.S. State Department, all kinds of cool stuff. It's an extensive.
And they're both residents of Easthampton?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah. And then the other candidate is Sarah Coe, who's also, she's really passionate about it, really friendly. I've been in communication with her on all of this. And she's pursuing a second degree in environmental science right now. And so it's really thought it would be good thing to take part in and something she cares about. So yeah, they're both seem like good candidates to me. And
I'm still in shock. I can't process the
You did get the email, right?
I did.
Okay.
Well, I didn't forward it to everyone yet because I didn't know.
No, it's fine. I just,
I thought you would have like at least given a couple of weeks notice so we could have.
I did.
Like,
You have
party.
2 weeks until your next meeting.
No. Like, yeah. How are we gonna have a party without you here?
It'll be an even better party. You can take me out to lunch.
All right. When Chris Cockshell left, is that when we gave him a go with the onions? So that's something that's
Yes, that was a goat.
Did you get on?
So Chris Cockshell.
It was like a beanie baby goat. It wasn't
Yeah.
a real goat.
I forget what, but there was for some reason.
There was some reason to give him a goat. Okay.
Yep.
So if there's 2 openings, is that?
There are not 2 openings and quite serendipitous. The universe.
This is why you decided to leave, isn't it?
I didn't actually see that. Julie, put that away.
What? Mark it up.
So this is new for me. How do you determine chair?
So I guess at the next meeting, y'all have a vote. Someone would volunteer and.
I already did my motion, so I'm all set.
Oh, okay. Just that motional thing until next meeting, I suppose. I think it would be good to have, I don't know, if we need to wait until these new commissioners come on. That's a good question. Certainly Michael.
You can't throw them into the chair position.
I'm sure you can. You can.
John Roberts.
I would recommend it.
I'll get the details for the next meeting on what's required.
What's that?
Robert's Rules of Order.
Excellent.
Okay, what other materials do you have to share with us that would
About these
help us
candidates?
save ourselves? No, Melissa.
I can make you all the NSC handbook, have access to online,
Perfect.
searchable version, and
I think you've got 2 very qualified candidates.
I agree.
Into this.
Yeah.
Okay. So
How did you get to be chair? Like there was.
Kelly,
well,
I don't know.
it was
Kelly
like-
left and I
Kelly
think
left
everybody
and-
else took a step back.
Right.
I was like, hey, here we go.
Yeah.
I really.
I think we should just ordain it to be Julie without taking a vote.
I
I don't want the job, that's for sure.
Jay's done a fine job.
I don't mind doing it, but I'm not a professional, you know?
You don't have to be.
I know, I can run a meeting, but you know,
That's all you need to do. You don't have to actually know anything.
Happy to
I
consider.
don't have to know anything.
Taking a little
I don't have to
time.
know anything to be in charge.
We could just rock, paper, scissors.
I
in 2
talked
weeks,
myself
and-
into it.
All right, you think about it.
Have a rotating chair
Oh, that's interesting.
and see who.
Well, she's done it different times, so when I, it's all good.
I mean, and whoever does it, just remember
It's not Dan Bustrick.
that it's not Dan Buttrick and that Melissa did it before we had an agent and had to do all the.
Oh, I
paperwork.
Oh, yes,
We didn't have
yes.
that yet, would not,
For all the-
would not consider.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Not, I mean, I certainly communicate with you a lot outside of it. So there was that element of like, I would look to you and be like, I need advice on how to proceed sometimes, but I think I would try to minimize, I'll try to minimize that more than I've been doing it. And,
You are full-time and permanent now, right? Okay.
Yes.
So, yeah, better reduce the workload.
All right, so we still have a few more items.
Yes.
8D, temporary pond sculpture.
I don't know if y'all remember this, this is before the pandemic. City Arts coordinator, she presented that for the Cultural Chaos event. They were planning to put in a floating sculpture
No.
She just wanted to double check to make sure it's okay, and I wanted to put it back.
It's no different than a boat. We don't require permits for boats. So,
So she just wanted to double check. We had in the minutes, so I was like, yes, make it. So I appreciate it.
oh, that's very considerate. All right, next item, future hybrid meetings.
So I just have on here as a placeholder in case people have questions, concerns. This is how it's been going. It's only our second one, so I figured. I know you noted you watched some of the recordings and it was a little loud, kind of hard to hear.
It was,
Certainly we had, it was that Shan thing was right over here before.
Behind you.
I'll watch the recording, we'll see. Hopefully that was an improvement. And also there was weird stuff with that mic somehow.
This has been
turned on.
This
has been
wasn't
going.
working and that mic was working, so it was kind of,
I didn't receive
Julie
any
couldn't hear what
notice.
was going on.
Yeah. No complaints from the virtual attendees today yet, so maybe I'll ask you about it when I talk to them tomorrow. But sounds like it's working. And it survived through the previous meeting. That was also like an hour and a half long, so the battery's good. Any questions about it? Yeah.
Having been my first one in person, I really miss having access to being able to look stuff up on the computer at the same time. So I don't remember how we used to do this, that we could access what we needed, but
They're called drawings.
You certainly, I mean, I can ask about getting another laptop that just isn't projecting on there. What I'm trying to do during the meetings is put them on here and project it onto the Zoom meeting and kind of like indicating with my cursor where the things are so that people can see what y'all are doing over here when you're looking at plans on top or when people are gesturing at the TV that no one, virtually attendees can't see when someone's pointing at the TV.
Right.
So that's what I've been trying to do. And if we got another laptop, or certain people can bring in their personal laptops, but you can't join the meeting that way, just because it would be crazy with feedback and sound.
Yeah.
But you're allowed to look at your own materials, whether they be virtual or in your hands. So we can do it that way. And if nobody has a laptop, we want there to be one I can ask my team. Yep.
Is the commission still receiving paper copies?
Yeah, we've been getting
Like
some,
a file
I
copy?
printed everything out, and I did a poor job of handing it out today during the meeting because I was like running around. But I've been printing out a physical copy, so there's at least one at every meeting of everything. Not always full-size plans like this, sometimes they're just allowed by 17. But I can, ask for bigger plans and.
Are we still able for you to send these to us like we did when we were remote so that we can?
Yes, that's will still be my goal.
Meeting or-
Yeah.
Yeah, because
That's not
all
far away.
these are hyperlinks, so you can go and look at the photos.
Yeah. So I plan to keep doing that. I don't want to stop doing
Okay.
it. That's, if there's a better way for me to share you guys information in advance, I'm happy to do it. But
Oh, that's great, because you can open it up, you can see it.
I know it gets,
Slap
I
that.
apologize, sometimes I have to send multiple emails. I was like, it's supposed to just be one. And then I get, this meeting in particular got a little wacky, but my goal is to have it be a one and done thing. And then, then it's the final agenda on Thursdays as a reminder. But yeah, if as you think of things and as things come up, feel free to tell me anything you want about these hybrid meetings. So
How long are hybrid meetings planned at this point? I don't know.
forever.
Things forever.
So because right now, the thing allowing us to do all virtual technically expires in July.
Right.
So it's kind of trying to preempt that going away.
Okay.
And then it's just people liked the increased access that virtual allowed. So as long as we have a quorum, as long as the quorum is in person and
Yes, that's
make
right.
it available in person, we don't have to provide hybrid, but the city wants to take that measure to increase accessibility.
I think it's a nice mechanism.
Yeah, I agree.
And it keeps the number of people who feel they have to come into the building down.
Yeah, it was interesting. This meeting, we were full and I could put more seats and stagger them. That's a concern. There's also hybrid upstairs. So when there's bigger items, like bigger projects, we'd go up there
We
for
go
sure.
go upstairs.
But that was my concern today. I was like, man, we didn't have that many public attendees, but it was full. Like, all the way.
So is this Zoom or Google?
Dex meeting, we Google Meet. This was
Google,
Zoom.
okay.
This
So
was
Zoom.
Zoom today, but it's the last one that we're gonna do.
Okay.
With Zoom. Everything will meet going forward. And you had a concern about, do you need new training on that? In theory, y'all won't be attending virtually, you'll attend in person. I'm
Right.
happy to send you that link again and a little tutorial of how it works. But hopefully it will change nothing for you. You just come to the meeting. So I'm happy to send it out again.
And you don't have to worry about any of it.
You.
I just have to attend all my hearings.
Wasn't this,
Oh,
Nice.
Had to attend a conservation commission.
are you Deb's student?
Well, you're new to the chair, you're the new chair.
No, I'm Scott Jackson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been fun class.
Yeah.
Is it the assessment field techniques class?
Exactly.
I've taken that.
Yeah, you did?
Yep. It's a great class.
Yeah.
Scott's great.
Yeah, it was really fun. Yeah, when you guys were talking about that was one of the projects about whether or not assessing whether or not. I was like, oh, I can go out there.
Are you volunteering?
We take volunteers.
If you have other questions about it, let me know, because I'm just sending an email or whatever. All my stuff is on the city website, so you can read it out. But great, this was a fun meeting to come to. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for showing up.
I guess it's a motion to adjourn.
Is there a motion to
Second.
adjourn? All those in favor, roll call vote. Lisa.
Aye.
Patrick.
Aye.
August. Ryan.
Aye.
Furthermore, absent. Motion carries at 8:30. Thank you.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.